I assume if you clicked on the link to this video that you're either a drinker who wants to stop, or you think you drink too much and you want to calm down a bit, or you generally just want to manage your drinking. And if that's the case, then what I'm going to do here is just talk about why I stopped drinking, and maybe more really how I stopped drinking. A bit of both, really. And if that resonates with somebody who, and it helps them to cut down their drinking or reach a certain goal, then fantastic. This video has done its job. So I am now 54. I started drinking when I was probably about 14 actually, but heavily drinking. I say heavily, drinking regularly every weekend from about 18. So from 18 up till when I gave up 7.5 years ago, that's 30 odd years. I was drinking more and more and more. So, I got into the usual habit of going down the town and, going out on special occasions and drinking quite a lot. So I'd go out with a bunch of mates. There was about 14 of us, and we would go out from age 18, and pretty much every weekend we'd go out, we'd go down the bars, we'd do a whole tour of pubs in our local area, and we'd drink probably, anything from 8 to 14 or 15 pints in that particular session, and we'd probably do that twice over the weekend. And early on I wasn't a really drinker at home. I would generally go down the pub, so that would be weekends, some evenings maybe. So Friday night and Saturday night were the main ones, and if there was a bank holiday we'd do it again on Sunday. And this continued until I got a little bit older. And then as you get older, your work commitments, your family commitments, you have children and everything else, and it's not always easy to go out on the weekends. So I then started drinking from home. And it sounds like working from home, doesn't it? Drinking from home. So I was drinking from home, and it started off with probably equivalent. I say the equivalent because I used to drink beer, I used to drink cider, I used to drink whiskey, gin, wine. So the equivalent of about a bottle of wine every night. That would be pretty much 5 nights a week, plus I'd drink more than that over the weekend. Now, I know for a fact that there are loads and loads of people who do the same. Loads of people who do the same. In fact, more than that. Now, I was never one of these people that would wake up in the morning and start drinking. Now, I also know people that have done that as well. But I've always considered myself, back then I always considered myself to be not an alcoholic, not really a heavy drinker, because it was just kind of the norm. When you go downtown and you see the hundreds of people in the bars getting absolutely smashed to a point where they can't walk, they're falling around in the street. That was me too, and my wife in the early days when we first got together, and that feels like normal. Right, so that's normal. If you're any worse than that, then you're a heavy drinker. So the normal is to get absolutely smashed until you fall over. That's the normal kind of attitude to drinking, and I know that's still the same down the town these days. There's a big movement of young people who are not drinking, which is tied in with the fact that there's a lot of non-alcoholic or low alcohol beverages around now. So I timed my stopping drinking at the right time. I'll cover that later, but I've seen video titles saying high functioning alcoholic, and I suppose that's probably what I was. I was certainly addicted to alcohol. I didn't realise it at the time, but it was definitely habitual. It was also to do with suppressing lots of thoughts and feelings that I had. My dad took his life when I was 27. He was 59. I went completely off the rails after that, started drinking much more heavily, and I never really recovered from it until I actually stopped, as I say, 7.5 years ago. January the 12th 2019, I decided that I would never drink again, and I've not touched a drop since. I've sniffed some just to see how I feel about it, and it actually makes me feel physically sick in my stomach and makes my liver ache. The even thought of it, being drunk. I only used to drink to get drunk. I was never one of these people that could just go and have a pint, and that would be a pint and a chat and then go home. I'd always plan to drink to get drunk. So barbecues, even DIY, everything involved getting drunk later on. So you might think, I've been told by some people, oh, well, you clearly can't control your drinking. I can control my drinking. And those same people I've seen that literally can't get up from the floor after falling down absolutely blind drunk, on a weekend. And it's just justification. at the end of the day, it's just justification for what they're doing, and because they can't see themselves doing the same as me, actually stopping and giving up. So how did I do it? Well, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It's definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. I didn't register with AA or go to any meetings or anything like that. I didn't really want somebody phoning me up in the middle of the night, screaming drunk, saying I need help. I don't want to be responsible like that, and I didn't want to be around other people. To be honest, that's the last thing I wanted. So I made the decision, and the reason I made the decision I'll go into on subsequent videos. There was a lot building up to it, but there was one particular event that just snapped me and made me decide this has to stop. Now, I had given up previously before for up to 6 months. I think was the most I'd stopped before, and it was great, but I went off the rails again. Various events happened that made me go for the known option, not necessarily the easy option, of just picking up the drink again. And then that cycle continues. You start drinking more at home, you start drinking more at the weekends. Excuse me if I'm sweating. I've got some lighting on, and I'm in my caravan, and it's really, really hot in here. I'm not with a raging hangover or anything, trust me. So how I stopped, and this is a massive subject, and it's going to be over subsequent videos again, but I basically I made the decision, and then I had to own that decision and make that decision right. So it involved a very long sort of mental process. I used an audiobook by Anthony Robbins that was about habit breaking and how to change habits, and I used that and applied it to drinking, and I listened to that thousands of times. I took on a job that meant that I was on the road all the time, which was really helpful for non-drinking. I couldn't be hungover or anything like that. I was driving long days, 14 hours a day on the motorway, so I was able to listen to this audio CD, which is only an hour long, for hours and hours and hours. And so over a period of years I've listened to that thousands of times, and I get something new from it every single time I listen to it. So I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail on other videos, but I use that, and that's what I'd recommend. Use whatever you can. If it means you go to meetings, but just stick to it. Just own that decision of giving up, and make sure you make it the right decision. That's it. Once you've made that decision, you can't go back. So the other thing I did, for the first 2 years was very difficult. I had to. So usually on a birthday, Christmas, other people's birthdays, other major events, bank holidays, all that sort of stuff would normally be associated with drinking. So I had to go through those events. I had to get through at least one Christmas, and one New Year's Eve, and one birthday, and that takes a year to get through that, right? To do those without drinking, and then I had to continue that for the next year, and so gradually each year gets easier. So the first Christmas without booze can seem really, really odd, especially when you're seeing everybody around you drunk. But then after a while, you start to switch and see the other side of it, and see how bad people look when they're really, really drunk. And it's not as fun as it was maybe it felt before. So that can take a couple of years, maybe more, depending on your situation. So and again, I can only talk from my situation. Everybody else's circumstances might be different. And I meant to say at the start, that I'm not a doctor. I'm not an alcohol advisor or anything like that at all. So anything that I say here is not advice, because I don't know your circumstances. So don't take it as advice. And also, doctors would always recommend, if you're going to make a drastic change to your lifestyle, then always go and see a doctor first, because I don't know what kind of drinking level you're at, and some doctors may recommend taking it slow and not stopping immediately, because that can be dangerous apparently. But for me, I didn't seek any advice at all. I just stopped, knocked it on the head that day, and that was it. And I had been drinking heavily for the night before, but I made the decision the night before, while I was drunk, to never drink again, and I haven't touched it. So it was, as I say, it was quite handy to have the non-alcoholic beverage market come up at the same sort of time, and now it's prolific. You can go into your local Tesco's and buy pretty much every drink you ever drank, non-alcoholic version, which is great. So I still drink ciders that are non-alcoholic. I like the taste of it, I enjoy it, and I've got used to drinking a cider and not feeling that drunk feeling, that tipsy feeling, and so that's good. But I'll also drink orange squash or lemonade or water. And I'm quite happy with that as well. But I like the taste of the ciders, and I enjoy it without the alcohol. But you know, that was another big thing for me, was having to replace the drinking with something else, because there's obviously a reason you drink, right? You drink because of a certain reason, so that reason must have been giving you some kind of benefit. So you have to replace the drinking with something else to distract yourself, if you like, from the drinking. So I've really just kind of only touched on how and why I've done this. But you know, if you are new to the channel, this is the first video anyway, and you wanted to learn more about the process of me giving up drinking over the last 7.5 years and going forward, then please subscribe to the channel and check out some other videos as and when they come online. In the meantime, I hope you're very well, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon.